readers, and welcome to another chapter of reading. This chapter is filled with fun surprises, so make sure you listen and watch. So without further ado, let's get started. Chapter 11, The Dueling Club. Harry woke up on Sunday morning to find the dormitory blazing with winter sunlight and his arm reboned, but very stiff. He sat up quickly and looked over at Colin's bed, but it had been blocked from view by the high curtains Harry had changed behind yesterday. Seeing that he was awake, Madame Pomfrey came bustling over with a breakfast tray and then began bending and stretching his arm and fingers. "All in order," she said as he clumsily fed himself porridge left-handed. "I'm right-handed too, Harry, so I think I would feel a little clumsy too." "When you've finished eating, you may leave." Harry dressed as quickly as he could and hurried off to Gryffindor Tower, desperate to tell Ron and Hermione about Colin and Dobby, but they weren't there. Harry left to look for them, wondering where they could have got to and feeling slightly hurt that they weren't interested in whether he had his bones back or not. As Harry passed the library, Percy Weasley strolled out of it looking in far better spirits than last time they met. "Oh, hello, Harry," he said. "Excellent flying yesterday. Really excellent. Gryffindor has just taken the lead for the House Cup. You earned 50 points. You haven't seen Ron or Hermione, have you?" said Harry. "No, I haven't," said Percy, his smile fading. "I hope Ron's not in another girl's toilet." Harry forced a laugh and watched Percy walk out of sight and then headed straight for Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. He couldn't see why Ron and Hermione would be in there again, but after making sure that neither Filch nor any prefects were around, he opened the door and heard their voices coming from a locked stone. "It's me," he said, closing the door behind him. There was a clunk, a splash, and a gasp within the stall, and he saw Hermione's eye peering through the keyhole. "Harry!" she said. "You gave us such a fright. Come in. How's your arm?" "Fine," said Harry, squeezing into the stall. An old cauldron was perched on the toilet, and crackling from under the room told Harry that they had lit a fire beneath it. Conjuring up portable waterproof fires was a specialty of Hermione's. That fire would actually be kind of useful when camping, especially if you're in the rain. "We've come to meet you, but we decided to get started on the Polyjuice potion," Ron explained as Harry with difficulty walked the stall again. "We've decided this is the safest place to hide it." Harry started to tell them about Colin, but Hermione interrupted. "We already know. We heard Professor McGonagall telling Professor Flitwick this morning. That's why we decided we'd better get going. The sooner we get a confession out of Malfoy, the better," snarled Ron. "You know what I think? He was in such a foul temper after the Quidditch match he took it out on Colin." "There's something else," said Harry, watching Hermione tearing bundles of knotgrass and throwing them into the potion. "Dobby came to visit me in the middle of the night." Ron and Hermione looked up amazed. Harry told them everything Dobby had told him, or hadn't told him. Hermione and Ron listened with their mouths open. "The Chamber of Secrets has been opened before," Hermione said. "This settles it," said Ron in a triumphant voice. "Lucius Malfoy must have opened the chamber when he was at school here, and now he's told dear old Draco how to do it. It's obvious. Wish Dobby told you what kind of monster's in there, though. I want to know how come nobody's noticed it sneaking around the school." "Maybe it can make itself invisible," said Hermione, prodding leeches to the bottom of the cauldron. "Maybe it can disguise itself, pretend to be a suit of armor or something. I've read about chameleon ghouls." "You read too much, Hermione," said Ron, pouring dead lace lanes on top of the leeches. He crumpled up the empty waistcoat bag and looked at Harry. "So Dobby stopped us from getting on the train and broke your arm?" He shook his head. "You know what, Harry? If he doesn't stop trying to save your life, he's going to kill you." The news that Colin Creevey had been attacked was was now lying as though dead in a hospital when had spread through the entire school by Monday morning. The air was suddenly thick with rumor and suspicion. The first years were now moving around the castle in tight groups, as though scared they would be attacked if they ventured forth alone. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the buddy system. Ginny Weasley, who sat next to Colin Creevey in Charms, was distraught. But Harry felt that Fred and George were going the wrong way about cheering her up. They were taking turns covering themselves with fur or boils and jumping out of her from behind statues. They only stopped when Percy, apoplectic, I think, or presumed. How do you pronounce apoplectic?
That's pronounced apoplectic.
The Google assistant said. With rage, told them he was going to write to Mrs. Weasley and tell her Ginny was having nightmares. Well, I'm glad Percy was able to set Fred and George straight, because I kind of would side with Percy on that. Meanwhile, hidden from the teachers of roaring trade and talismans, amulets, and other protective devices was sweeping the school. Neville Longbottom brought a large, evil-smelling green onion, a pointed purple crystal. I wonder if it's amethyst. That's my birthstone. And a rotting newt tail before the other Gryffindor boys pointed out that he was no danger. He was a pureblood and therefore unlikely to be attacked. They went for Filch first, Neville said, his round face fearful. And everyone knows I'm almost a squib. In the second week of December, Professor McGonagall came around as usual, collecting names of those who would be staying at school for Christmas. Harry, Ron, and Hermione signed her list. They heard that Malfoy was staying, which struck them as very suspicious. The holidays would be a perfect time to use the Polyjuice Potion and try to worm a confession out of him. Unfortunately, the potion was only half finished. They still needed the bicorn horn and the boomside skin, and the only place they were going to get them was from Snape's private stores. Harry privately felt he'd rather face Slytherin's legendary monster than let Snape catch him robbing his office. What we need, said Hermione briskly, as Thursday afternoon's double potion lesson loomed nearer. Hey, today's Thursday. Is a diversion. Then one of us can sneak into Snape's office and take what we need. Harry and Ron looked at her nervously. I think I'd better do the actual stealing, Hermione continued in a matter-of-fact tone. You two will be expelled if you get into any more trouble, and I've got a clean record. So all you need to do is cause enough mayhem to keep Snape busy for 5 minutes or so. Harry smiled feebly. Deliberately causing mayhem in Snape's potions class was about as safe as poking a sleeping dragon in the eye. Yeah, I don't think that's the best choice of action. Somebody tells me you're gonna get incinerated if you do that. Potions lessons took place in one of the large dungeons. Thursday's afternoon lesson proceeded in the usual way. 20 cauldrons stood steaming between the wooden desks, which stood on brass scales and jars of ingredients. Snape prowled through the fumes, making wasp-like remarks about the Gryffindor's work, while the Slytherins snarled appreciatively. Draco Malfoy, who was Snape's favorite student, kept flicking pufferfish eyes at Ron and Harry, who knew that if they retaliated, they would get detention faster than you could say unfair. Harry's swelling solution was far too runny, but he had his mind on more important things. He was waiting for Hermione's signal, and he hardly listened as Snape paused to stare at his watery potion. When Snape turned and walked off to bully Neville, Hermione caught Harry's eye and nodded. Harry ducked swiftly down behind his cauldron, pulled one of Fred's filibuster fireworks, alliteration, out of his pocket and gave it a quick prod with his wand. The firework began to fizz and sputter. Knowing he only had seconds, Harry straightened up, took aim, and lobbed it into the air. It landed right on target in Goyle's cauldron. Goyle's, called, Goyle's potion exploded, showering the whole class. People shrieked as splashes of the swan solution hit them. Malfoy got a faceful and his nose began to swell like a balloon. Oh, I would have loved to seen that in the films. Goyle blundered around, his hands over his eyes, which had expanded to the size of a dinner plate. Snape was trying to restore calm and find out what had happened. Through the confusion, Harry saw Hermione slip quietly into Snape's office. Silence! Silence! Snape roared. Anyone who has been splashed, come here for a deflating draught. When I find out who did this. Harry tried not to laugh as he watched Malfoy hurry forward, his head drooping with the weight of a nose like a small melon. As half the class lumbered up to Snape's desk, some weighted down with arms like clubs, others unable to talk through the gigantic puffed-up lips. Harry saw Hermione slide back into the dungeon, the front of her robes bulging. When everyone had taken a swig of the antidote and the various swelling subsided, Snape slipped over to Goyle's cauldron and scooped out the twisted black remains of the firework. There was a sudden hush. If I ever find out who threw this, Snape whispered, I shall make sure that person is expelled. Harry arranged his face into what he hoped was a puzzled expression. Snape was looking right at him, and the bell rang 10 minutes later. Could not have been more welcome. He knew it was me, Harry told Ron and Hermione as they hurried back into Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. I could tell. Hermione threw the new ingredients into the cauldron and began to stir feverishly. It'll be ready in 2 weeks, she said happily. Snape can't prove it was you, said Ron reassuringly to Harry. What can he do? Knowing Snape, something bad, said Harry as the potion frothed and bubbled. A week later, Harry, Ron, and Hermione were walking across the entrance hall when they saw a small knot of people gathered around the notice board, reading a piece of parchment that had just been pinned up. Seamus Finnegan and Thomas beckoned them over, looking excited. They're starting a dueling club, said Seamus. First meeting tonight. I wouldn't mind dueling lessons. They might come in handy one of these days. But you reckon Slytherin's master can duel? Said Ron, but he too read the sign with interest. Could be useful, he said to Harry and Hermione as they went into dinner. Shall we go? Harry and Hermione were all for it, so at 8 o'clock that evening they hurried back to the great hall. The long dining tables had vanished, and a golden stage had appeared on one wall, lit by thousands of candles floating overhead. The ceiling was velvety black once more, and most of the school seemed to be packed beneath it, all carrying their wands and looking excited. Wonder who will be teaching us, said Hermione as they edged into the chattering crowd. Someone told me it was Flitwick was the dueling champion when he was young. Maybe it'll be him. As long as it's not, Harry began, but he ended in a groan. Gilderoy Lockhart was walking onto the stage, resplendent in robes of deep plum. What another purple. What another purple. That purple is beautiful. It's on the shady side, so to speak, but it is such a marvelous color. And accompanying none other than Snape wearing his usual black. You can't at least wear a dark gray, Snape? Lockhart waved an arm for silence and called, gather round, gather round. Can anyone see me? Can you all hear me? Excellent. Now, Professor Dumbledore has granted me permission to start this little dueling club, to train you all in case you ever need to defend yourselves, as I myself have done on countless occasions. For full details, see my published works. Let me introduce my assistant, Professor Snape, said Lockhart, flashing a wide smile. He tells me he knows a tiny little bit about dueling himself, has sportingly agreed to help me with a short demonstration before we begin. Now, I don't want any of you youngsters to worry. You'll still have your potions master when I'm through with him. Never fear. Wouldn't it be good if they finished each other off? Ron muttered in Harry's ear. Snape's upper lip was curling. Harry wondered why Lockhart was still smiling, as if Snape had been looking at him like that, he would have been running in as fast as he could in the opposite direction. Lockhart and Snape turned to face each other and bowed. At least Lockhart did, with much twirling of his hands, whereas Snape jerked his head irritably. Then they raised their wands like swords in front of them. As you say, we're holding our wands in the accepted combative position, Lockhart told the silent crowd. On the count of 3, we will cast our first spells. Neither of us will be aiming to kill, of course. I wouldn't bet on that, Harry murmured, watching Snape baring his teeth. 1, 2, 3. Both of them swung their wands above their heads and pointed them at their opponent. Snape cried, Expelliarmus! There was a dazzling flash of scarlet light, and Lockhart was blasted off his feet. He flew backward off the stage, smashed into the wall, and slid down it to sprawl on the floor. Malfoy and some of the other Slytherins cheered. Hermione was dancing on tiptoes. Do you think he's all right? She squealed through her fingers. Who cares? Said Ron and Harry together. Lockhart was getting unsteadily to his feet. His hat had fallen off and his wavy hair was standing on end. Well, there you have it, he said, tottering back onto the platform. That was a disarming charm. As you see, I've lost my wand. Ah, thank you, Miss Brown. Yes, an excellent idea to show them that, Professor Snape. But if you don't mind my saying so, it was very obvious about what you were about to do. If I had wanted to stop you, it would have only been too easy. However, I felt it would be instructive to let them see. Snape was looking murderous. Possibly Lockhart had noticed, because he said, Enough demonstrating. I'm going to come amongst you now and put you all into Paris. Professor Snape, if you'd like to help me. They moved through the crowd, matching up partners. Lockhart teamed Neville with Justin Fletchley, but Snape reached Harry and Ron first. Time to split up the dream team, I think, he sneered. Weasley, you can partner Finnegan. Potter. Harry automatically moved toward Hermione. I don't think so, said Snape, smiling coldly. Mr. Malfoy, come over here. Let's see what you can make of the famous Potter. And you, Miss Granger, you can partner Miss Bulstrode. Malfoy strutted over, smirking. Behind him walked a Slytherin girl who reminded Harry of a picture he had seen in Holidays with Hags. She was large and square, and her heavy jaw jutted aggressively. Hermione gave her a weak smile that she did not return. Face your partners, called Lockhart back onto the platform, and bow. Harry and Malfoy barely inclined their heads, not taking their eyes off each other. "Wands at the ready!" shouted Lockhart. "When I count to 3, cast your charms to disarm your opponents. Only to disarm them. We don't want any accidents. 1, 2, 3. Harry swung his wand high, but Malfoy had already started on 2. His spell hit Harry so hard he felt as though he had been hit with the saucepan. He stumbled, but everything still seemed to be working. And wasting no more time, Harry pointed his wand straight at Malfoy and shouted, "Rectum Centra!" A jet of silver light hit Malfoy in the stomach, and he doubled up weak. I know that's more candy. Okay, do. Okay. I said disarm only! Lockhart shouted in alarm over the heads of the battling crowd, and Malfoy sank to his knees. Harry had hit him with a tickling charm, and he could barely move for laughing. Harry came back with a vague feeling it would be unsporting to bewitch Malfoy while he was on the floor. But this was a mistake. Gasping for breath, Malfoy pointed his wand at Harry's knees, choked, "Tarantalaga!" And the second Harry's legs began to jerk out of his control in kind of a quicksand. "Stop! Stop!" screamed Lockhart, but Snape took charge. "Venite incatium!" he shouted. Harry's feet stopped dancing. Malfoy stopped laughing, and they were able to look up. A haze of greenish smoke was hovering over the scene. Both Neville and Justin were lying on the floor, panting. Ron was holding an ashen face, Seamus apologizing for whatever his broken wand had done, but Hermione and Millicent and Bulstrode were still moving. Millicent had Hermione in a headlock, and Hermione was whimpering in pain. Both their wands lay forgotten on the floor. Harry looked forward and pulled Millicent off. It was difficult. She was a lot bigger than he was. "Dear, dear," said Lockhart, skittering through the crowd, looking at the aftermath of the duels. "Up you go, Macmillan. Careful there, Miss Potter. Pinch it hard. It'll stop bleeding in a second. Boot. Think I'd better teach you how to block unfriendly spells," said Lockhart, standing flustered in the midst of the hall. He glanced at Snape, whose black eyes glinted, and looked quickly away. "Let's have a volunteer pair. Longbottom and Bletchley, how about you?" "A bad idea, Professor Lockhart," said Snape, gliding over like a large and enviable bat. "Longbottom causes devastation with the simplest spells. We'll be sending up what's left of Finch Bletchley up to the hospital wing in a matchbox." Neville's round pink face went pinker. "How about Malfoy and Potter?" Snape said with a twisted smile. "Excellent idea," said Lockhart, gesturing Harry and Malfoy into the middle of the hall as the crowd backed away to give them room. "Now, Harry," said Lockhart, "when Draco points his wand at you, you do this." He raised his own wand, attempted a complicated sort of wiggling action, and dropped it. Snape smirked as Lockhart quickly picked it up, saying, "Oops, my wand is a little overexcited." Snape moved closer to Malfoy, bent down, and whispered something in his ear. Malfoy smirked too. Harry looked up nervously at Lockhart and said, "Professor, could you show me that blocking thing again?" "Scad Potter," muttered Malfoy so that Lockhart couldn't hear him. "You wish," said Harry out of the corner of his mouth. Lockhart kept Harry merrily on his shoulder. Just do what I did, Harry. What? Drop my wand? But Lockhart wasn't listening. 3, 2, 1, go! He shouted. Malfoy raised his wand quickly and bowed. Serpent Sortia! The end of his wand exploded. Harry watched aghast as a long black snake shot out of it. It fell heavily on the floor between them, raised itself, ready to strike. There were screams as the crowd backed away swiftly, clearing the floor. Don't move, Potter, said Snape lazily, clearly enjoying the sight of Harry standing motionless, eye to eye with the angry snake. I'll get rid of it. Allow me! Shouted Lockhart. He brandished his wand at the end of the snake, and there was a loud bang. Flew 10 feet into the air. What's with the mini daffodil?
Got Michelle. And each one of the girls gave me a thank you card for everything that I do for them.
Oh.
All around. Mm-hmm. Do you care if I go to bed?
No, I'm reading. Oh. As pure as anyone, so I don't. I don't care what sort of blood you got, said Harry fiercely. Why would I want to attack muggle bones? I heard you hate those muggles you live with, said Ernie swiftly. It's not possible to live with the Dursleys and not hate them, said Harry. I'd like to see you try it. Yeah, I kind of would like to know what would happen if Ernie and Harry kind of switched places. He turned on his heel and stormed out of the library, earning himself a reproving glare from Madame Pince, who was polishing the gilded cover of a large spellbook. Harry blundered up the corridor, barely noticing where he was going. He was in such a fury. The result was that he walked into something very large and solid, which knocked him backward onto the floor. Oh, hello, Hagrid, Harry said, looking up. Hagrid's face was entirely hidden by a woolly, snow-covered balaclava? Something like that. But it couldn't possibly be anyone else, as he filled most of the corridor in his moleskin overcoat. A dead rooster was hanging from one of his massive gloved hands. All right, Harry, he said, pulling up the balaclava so he could speak. Why aren't you in class? Cancelled, said Harry, getting up. What are you doing in here? Hagrid held up the one rooster. Second one killed this time, he explained. It's either foxes or a blood-sucking bugbear, and I need the headmaster's permission to put a charm around the hen coop. He peered more closely at Harry from under his thick, snow-flecked eyebrows. You're sure you're all right? You look all hot and bothered. Harry couldn't bring himself to repeat what Ernie and the rest of the Hufflepuffs had been saying about him. It's nothing, he said. I'd better get going, Hagrid. It's Transfiguration next, and I've got to pick up my books. He walked off, his mind still full of what Ernie had said about him. Justin's been waiting for something like this to happen ever since he let it slip to Potter he was muggle-born. Harry stamped up the stairs and turned out another corridor, which was particularly dark. The torches had been extinguished by a strong, icy draft that was blowing through a loose window pane. He was halfway down the passage when he tripped headlong over something lying on the floor. He tried to squint at what he'd fallen over and felt as though his stomach had dissolved. Justin Finch-Fletcher was lying on the floor, rigid and cold, a look of shock frozen on his face, his eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. And that wasn't all. Next to him was another figure, the strangest sight Harry had ever seen. It was nearly headless Nick, no longer pearly white and transparent, but black and smoky, floating immobile and horizontal 6 inches off the floor. His head was half off, and his face wore an expression of shock identical to Justin's. I wonder if that would mean nearly headless Nick was Muggle born. Something to think about. Harry got to his feet, breathing fast and shallow, his heart doing kind of a drum roll against his ribs. He wildly looked up and down the deserted corridor and saw a line of spiders scuttling as fast as they could away from the bodies. The only sounds were the muffled voices of the teachers from the classes on either side. He could run and no one would ever know he had been there, but he couldn't just leave them lying here. He had to get help. Would anyone believe he hadn't done anything to do with this? As he stood there panicking, the door right next to him opened with a bang. Peeves the poltergeist came shooting out. "Why, it's Potty Wee Potter!" cackled Peeves, knocking Harry's glasses askew as he bounced past him. "What's Potter up to? Why's Potter looking?" Peeves stopped halfway through a mid-air somersault. Upside down, he spotted Justin and nearly headlessly. He flipped the right way up, filled his lungs, and before Harry could stop him, screamed, "Attack! Attack! Another attack! No more till our ghost is safe! Run for your lives! Attack!" Crash, crash, crash. Door after door flew open along the corridor, and people flooded out. For several minutes there was a scene of such confusion that Justin was in danger of being squashed, and people kept standing and nearly headless Nick. Harry found himself pinned against the wall as the teacher shouted for quiet. Professor McGonagall came running, followed by her own class, one of whom who still had black and white striped hair. That kind of be cool, honestly. She used her wand to set up a long bang, which restored silence and ordered everyone back into their classes. No sooner had the scene cleared somewhat than Ernie Hufflepuff arrived panting on the scene. "Caught in the act!" Ernie yelled, his face stark white, pointing his finger dramatically at Harry. "That'll do, Macmillan," said Professor McGonagall sharply. Peeves was bobbing overhead, now grinning wickedly, surveying the scene. Peeves always loved chaos. As the teachers bent over, Justin and nearly headless Nick examining him, Peeves broke out into song. "Oh, Potter, you rotter! What have you done? You're killing off students. You think it's good fun?" "That's enough, Peeves!" barked Professor McGonagall, and Peeves zoomed away backwards with his gun out at Harry. Justin was carried up to the hospital wing by Professor Flitwick and Professor Sinatra of the astronomy department. But nobody seemed to know what to do for nearly headless Nick. In the end, Professor McGonagall conjured a large fan out of thin air, which she gave to Ernie with instructions to waft nearly headless Nick up the stairs. This Ernie did, fanning Nick along like a silent black hovercraft. This whipped Harry and Professor McGonagall a moment together. "This way, Potter," she said. "Professor," said Harry once, "I swear I didn't." "This is out of my hands, Potter," said Professor McGonagall curtly. They marched in silence around a corner, and she stopped before a large and extremely ugly stone gargoyle. "Lemon drop," he said. This was evidently a password, because the gargoyle sprang suddenly to life and hopped aside as the wall behind him split in two. Even full of dread for what was coming, Harry couldn't fail to be amazed. Behind the wall was a spiral staircase that was moving smoothly upward like an escalator. As he and Professor McGonagall stepped onto it, Harry heard the wall thud and close behind them. They rose upward in circles, higher and higher, until at last, slightly dizzyly, Harry saw a gleaming oak door ahead with a brass knocker in the shape of a griffin. He knew now where he was being taken. This must be where Dumbledore went. And that is the end of this compelling chapter. Join me next week for Chapter 5, The Potty Section. Bye!